Leah Bohr learned to hold a teacup with perfect poise when she was 22 years old, 3 months after her father signed the betrothal contract that sold her future to Prince Carl Louis of Val-Saran. The lessons were relentless. How to walk without making a sound. How to smile without showing teeth. How to laugh at jokes that weren't funny and deflect questions she wasn't supposed to answer. How to be seen but not heard, decorative but not distracting, present but not substantial. She learned that her opinions didn't matter. Prince Carl made that clear the first time she expressed one, and he dismissed her with a wave like she was a servant who'd spoken out of turn. She learned that her comfort didn't matter. The corsets were agonizing, but princesses bore discomfort with grace. She learned that her happiness was irrelevant. This marriage was about alliances, territory, and ensuring her family's minor noble house remained in the queen's favor. 6 months of training to be the perfect princess. 6 months of becoming someone else. 6 months of watching her own reflection become increasingly unfamiliar as the girl she'd been was systematically erased and replaced with the woman Prince Carl needed her to be. The betrothal ceremony was meant to be the final step before the wedding, a formal presentation to the combined courts of Val-Saran and the Leaken territories, announcing the alliance that would bind human and wolf kingdoms in peace. Leah would be displayed like a prize mare, her suitability confirmed, her transformation from person to princess complete. She stood in the preparation chamber, staring at herself in an elaborate mirror. The dress cost more than her family earned in a year, ivory silk embroidered with gold thread, pearls sewn into patterns that caught candlelight. Her auburn hair was arranged in elaborate braids woven with flowers. Her face was painted to emphasize features and minimize flaws. She looked perfect. She looked like everything she was supposed to be. She looked like a stranger. "Stop fidgeting," her mother hissed, adjusting Leah's sleeves for the 100th time. "You're about to be presented to 2 kingdoms. Show them you're worthy of being princess." Worthy. As if Leah's worth was determined by how well she performed someone else's expectations. But she smiled and nodded and held still while her mother fussed. Because this was her role now. This was what survival required. The grand ballroom of the royal palace was magnificent and suffocating in equal measure. Hundreds of nobles crowded the space, human nobles in silk and jewels on one side, Leaken representatives in leather and fur on the other. The division was clear, the tension palpable. These kingdoms had been at war within living memory. This alliance was fragile, built on mutual advantage rather than trust. Leah entered through the ceremonial doors, her hand resting on her father's arm, her face composed in the serene smile she'd practiced until her cheeks ached. Every eye turned toward her. She felt the weight of their assessment, their judgment, their calculation of whether she was suitable for the role she'd been purchased to fill. Prince Carl stood at the center of the room beside his mother, Queen Marianne. He was handsome in a cold way, sharp features, pale blue eyes, golden hair perfectly styled. He watched Leah approach with the same expression he'd used to evaluate a new horse, assessing value, looking for flaws, already bored with the process. The herald's voice rang out. "Lady Leah Bohr, betrothed to His Highness Prince Carl Louis, heir to the throne of Val-Saran, presented before the court for formal recognition of their union." Leah curtsied deeply, exactly as she'd been taught. Her dress pulled around her in perfect symmetry. Her head bowed at the precise angle indicating respect without subservience. When she rose, she kept her eyes downcast. Princesses didn't meet gazes directly. It was considered too bold, too presumptuous. "Approach," Queen Marianne commanded. Leah walked forward with measured steps. 1, 2, 3, pause. 1, 2, 3, pause. The rhythm drilled into her until it was automatic. She reached the raised dais where Carl and his mother waited. Carl extended his hand, and Leah placed hers in it, feeling nothing.
No items.
No connection. Just cold calculation and mutual obligation. "She'll do," Carl said, as if Leah weren't standing right there. "Adequate for producing heirs, at least." Humiliation burned in Leah's chest, but her smile never wavered. And then the doors at the far end of the ballroom slammed open. The sound was like thunder, violent and wrong, shattering the ceremony's careful choreography. Guards reached for weapons. Nobles gasped. Queen Marianne's face went white with fury. A man entered. No, not a man. Something more, and something other. He stood at least 7 feet tall, with shoulders so broad he had to turn slightly to fit through the doorway. His hair was black as midnight, worn long and wild, and his eyes, even from across the vast ballroom, Leah could see them, burned gold like molten metal. He wore leather and fur, no crown but authority radiating from him so powerfully it was almost visible. Every Leakin in the room immediately dropped to one knee. Even the human nobles stumbled backward, instinctively recognizing a predator too dangerous to challenge. Alpha King Drew Dang, someone whispered, the name carried through the crowd like wildfire. The ruler of the Northern Dominion, the most powerful Leakin in the realm. A king who'd united fractured wolf territories through a combination of brutal warfare and strategic brilliance. A man, a creature, whose reputation preceded him like the smell of ozone before a lightning strike. He'd never attended a human royal function before. His presence here was unprecedented, inexplicable, and absolutely terrifying. Drew Dang walked into the ballroom like he owned it. Guards didn't dare stop him. He moved with liquid grace despite his massive size, his golden eyes scanning the assembled crowd with predatory focus. And then those eyes found Leah. The impact was physical. Leah gasped, her carefully maintained composure shattering as something slammed into her chest. Not painful, but overwhelming. A sensation like recognition, like memory, like coming home after being lost for years. Drew's eyes widened fractionally, then narrowed, then locked onto her with absolute, terrifying certainty. He crossed the ballroom in long strides, nobles scrambling out of his path. He climbed the dais steps without permission, without invitation, his presence so overwhelming that even Queen Marianne took an involuntary step back. Carl, to his credit, held his ground. What is the meaning of this intrusion? Drew didn't even look at him. His eyes remained fixed on Leah, and she couldn't look away, couldn't move, couldn't breathe. This woman, Drew said, his voice a deep rumble that vibrated through the floorboards, is my fated mate. The room exploded into chaos.
Impossible.
Queen Marianne shrieked. She's betrothed to my son. Contracts have been signed. I don't recognize human contracts, Drew said, finally turning his gaze to the queen. The weight of his attention made her stumble. I invoke the right of challenge under Leakin law, which predates your kingdom by 1,000 years and supersedes all human agreements. The right of challenge is ceremonial, Carl protested, though his voice shook. It hasn't been invoked in centuries. Because no Alpha King has found his fated mate among humans in centuries, Drew interrupted. But the law stands. Leah Bohr belongs to me by right of destined bond. I claim her before both courts. Anyone who contests this claim can face me in ritual combat. The challenge hung in the air like drawn steel. No one moved. No one spoke. Because everyone in that room knew that challenging Drew Dang in combat was suicide. The Alpha King turned back to Leah, and for the first time, something almost gentle entered his expression. He extended one massive hand toward her. Come, he said softly, but it was still a command. Leah looked at his hand, at Prince Carl's furious face, at her mother's horrified expression, at the assembled courts holding their collective breath. She was meant for the prince. 6 months of preparation. Her family's survival. Political alliances spanning kingdoms. All of it shattering in a single moment. What did the Alpha King see when he looked at her? What was a fated mate? And why did part of her, the part she'd buried under months of training to be someone else, desperately want to take his hand and find out? What happens when a woman groomed to be the perfect princess is claimed by the most dangerous alpha king in the realm in front of both courts? Why would Drew Dang risk war with the human kingdom to claim a woman he's never met? Is Leah truly his fated mate, or is she a pawn in a political game she doesn't understand? And what happens when the prince she was meant to marry decides his wounded pride is worth starting a war? If you want to see what happens when a gilded cage is smashed open by raw power, when political alliances collide with ancient magic, and when a woman learns that sometimes the most terrifying choice is actually freedom, subscribe now. Because this story is about to get dangerous, complicated, and absolutely unhinged. You won't believe what Leah discovers about herself, about the Alpha King's true intentions, or about the conspiracy that's been building around her since before she ever met Prince Carl. Hit that subscribe button faster than Drew Dang crashed a royal ceremony, because we're just getting started. The silence following Drew's declaration is broken by Queen Marianne's voice, sharp as broken glass. This is an outrage. Guards, remove this intruder. 20 royal guards draw their weapons, swords, spears, crossbows. They surround the dais, forming a bristling circle of steel pointed at the Alpha King. Drew doesn't even glance at them. His eyes remain locked on Leah. "I am not an intruder," he says, his voice carrying effortlessly across the vast ballroom. "I am an invited guest to this alliance ceremony between human and Leaken kingdoms. And I am invoking a law that is binding on both our peoples. Unless you want to declare that Val Seren no longer honors the ancient treaties, I suggest you stand down." Queen Marianne's face cycles through rage, calculation, and fear. The ancient treaties are the only thing preventing war between human and Leaken territories. Breaking them would be catastrophic. "The right of challenge requires proof of the mate bond," she says finally, her voice tight. "You cannot simply claim any woman you desire." "I'm not claiming desire," Drew interrupts.
"I'm claiming destiny."
"The mate bond is witnessed by my wolf and recognized by ancient magic. If you doubt me, bring your court sorcerers. Let them examine the bond. They'll confirm what I already know." Several robed figures in the crowd, court magic users, shift uncomfortably. One, an elderly woman with silver hair, steps forward. "Your Majesty," she addresses the queen, her voice reluctant. "The mate bond, if genuine, would be visible to those with magical sight. I can perform the verification ritual." Queen Mary and looks like she's tasting poison. "Do it." The sorceress approaches the dais carefully, keeping a respectful distance from Drew. She raises her hands, and the air around her shimmers with pale blue light. Her eyes go unfocused, seeing something beyond normal sight.
She gasps.
"What?" Queen Marianne demands. "What do you see?" "The bond," the sorceress whispers, awe and fear mixing in her voice. It's blazing. I've never seen one so strong. Golden threads connecting their souls, bright as sunlight." She turns to the queen. "Your Majesty, there's no doubt. She's his fated mate." The declaration sends ripples through the crowd. Fated mates are rare. Most Lycans never find theirs, settling for chosen bonds instead. A true mate bond is considered sacred, unbreakable, blessed by whatever forces govern destiny itself. Carl's face contorts with rage. "I don't care about Leakin's superstitions. She's mine by contract. My family paid a dowry, which will be returned tenfold," Drew says, still not looking at the prince. "I'm not stealing a bride, Carl. I'm claiming what was always mine. The universe doesn't care about your contracts." "Then challenge me for her," Carl shouts, his voice cracking. "Face me in combat like your barbaric laws demand." Now Drew does look at him, and the contempt in his golden eyes is withering. "You're not worth my time, princeling. The right of challenge allows any challenger to face me, but it also allows me to refuse challenges from those beneath my rank. You're the heir to a human kingdom. I'm an alpha king who's killed 7 challengers in single combat. We are not equals." The public humiliation is devastating. Carl's face goes from red to white, his fists clenching uselessly. Throughout all of this, Leah stands frozen. Her mind is racing, trying to process what's happening. Fated mate. Ancient laws. Golden threads connecting souls. It sounds like a story from childhood, not reality. But the bond, she feels it. That strange sensation when Drew's eyes first found hers, like recognition and longing and certainty all wrapped together. It terrifies her because it's real in a way nothing in the past 6 months has been real. Leah, Drew says, and hearing her name in his voice sends shivers down her spine. I know this is overwhelming. I know you don't understand what's happening. But I need you to trust me. Come with me willingly, and I swear on my life that you'll be protected, honored, and given choices you've never had before. And if I refuse? Leah's voice comes out stronger than she expects. Something like approval flashes in Drew's eyes. Then I invoke my right under Leakin law to claim you anyway, but I'd prefer your cooperation. You're my mate, Leah. That means you're my equal, not my prisoner. But I cannot, I will not, leave you here to be married to someone else when the universe itself has bound us together. The universe? Leah's laugh is slightly hysterical. I don't even know you. No, Drew agrees. But you know him. He gestures to Carl, whose expression promises violence and humiliation if he ever gets Leah alone again. You know what your life here would be. Is that really what you choose? It's the question that breaks through Leah's shock. Because he's right. She does know what her life with Carl would be. 6 months of preparation have shown her exactly who the prince is. Cruel, entitled, dismissive. She'd be a broodmare in a gilded cage, producing heirs and remaining silent while her soul withered into nothing. Leah looks at Drew's extended hand, at the impossible choice before her. Stay with what she knows. Misery and powerlessness wrapped in silk and jewels. Or leap into the unknown with a terrifying stranger who claims they're destined for each other. If I go with you, Leah says slowly, what happens to my family? Prince Carl won't take this humiliation lightly. He'll punish them. Drew's expression hardens. Your family is under my protection as of this moment. Anyone who harms them answers to me. And Carl, his gaze cuts to the prince. If you so much as breathe in their direction, I will consider it an act of war against the Northern Dominion. Do you understand? Carl's jaw works, but he nods stiffly. Leah takes a deep breath. Her hand is shaking as she reaches out and places it in Drew's. His fingers close around hers, warm, strong, impossibly gentle despite their size. I choose to go with you, Leah says. Not because I believe in fate or soul bonds or ancient magic, but because you're giving me a choice at all, which is more than anyone else has done in 6 months. Drew's smile is brief, but genuine. That's enough for now. He turns to address both courts, Leah's hand still held firmly in his. Leah Boar is now under the protection of the Northern Dominion. The betrothal to Prince Carl Louis is dissolved by right of fated mate claim. We will depart immediately. This isn't over, Queen Marian says, her voice venomous. You've humiliated my son and disrupted a vital alliance. There will be consequences. Then we'll deal with them, Drew says calmly. But Leah is coming with me.
Now.
He begins to move, and Leah has no choice but to follow, though she realizes with strange clarity that she wants to. Every step away from Carl, away from the life that had been planned for her, feels like breathing after being underwater. They're halfway across the ballroom when Drew suddenly stops. His body goes rigid, his nostrils flaring. Get down, he roars. He yanks Leah behind him as something whistles through the air. An arrow, poison-tipped, Leah sees with horror, embeds itself in the dais where she'd been standing seconds before. Chaos erupts. Guards scramble to find the archer. Nobles scream and duck for cover. Drew's entire body seems to expand, his eyes flashing pure gold as his wolf rises to the surface. Assassin, he growls, scanning the ballroom's upper galleries with predatory focus. 3 more arrows fly from different directions, a coordinated attack. Drew moves with impossible speed, his body shielding Leah as arrows that should have killed them both shatter against his back. He's not even wounded, his skin somehow harder than the steel tips trying to pierce it. Northwest gallery, second window, east balcony. Drew shouts to the Lycan guards who've materialized from somewhere in the crowd. Take them alive if possible. The Lycans move like liquid shadows, scaling walls and leaping to galleries with supernatural grace. Within moments, they're dragging 3 figures in dark clothing back into the main ballroom. Drew approaches them, still keeping Leah safely behind him. He rips the mask off the nearest assassin. It's one of Carl's personal guards. The revelation sends shockwaves through the room. Drew's expression goes absolutely cold. You ordered this, he says, turning to Carl. It's not a question. I did no such thing. Carl protests, but his face is too pale, his denial too quick. Your guard. Your weapons. I can smell the royal armory oil on those arrows. And the target was clear. Drew's voice drops to something barely human. You tried to kill my mate. She was my bride first. Carl shouts, composure finally shattering. You can't just take what's mine and expect me to. He doesn't finish the sentence. Drew crosses the distance between them in less than a second, lifting Carl off the ground by his throat with one hand. She was never yours, Drew says, his voice dead. And now you've declared war. Queen Marianne screams for guards, but the Lycans are faster, forming a protective circle around their alpha king. The human guards find themselves facing creatures that could tear them apart in seconds, and they hesitate. Drew. Leah's voice cuts through the tension. She doesn't know where the courage comes from to use his name, to step forward instead of cowering. Don't kill him. Please. Drew's eyes meet hers over Carl's struggling form. He tried to murder you. I know. But killing him here starts a war that will cost thousands of lives. Is my revenge worth that? The calculation in Drew's eyes is terrifying. He's actually considering whether her revenge is worth a war, and the answer seems to be yes. Please, Leah says again. For me. Because you said I'm your equal, which means my voice matters. Something shifts in Drew's expression. Slowly, he lowers Carl, dropping him in an undignified heap at his mother's feet. You live because my mate has more mercy than you deserve, Drew tells Carl. But this is your only warning. Come after her again, and I will burn your kingdom to ash and salt the earth where it stood. He turns, offering his arm to Leah. We're leaving.
Now.
This time, no one tries to stop them. The journey to the Northern Dominion takes 3 days by carriage, though Drew's Lycan guards could run it in 1. He's accommodating Leah's human limitations, which she appreciates even as every mile takes her further from everything she's ever known. Drew rides in the carriage with her for most of the journey, though he seems too large for the space, his presence overwhelming even when he's trying to be unobtrusive. You have questions, he says on the second day. It's not a question. Leah has approximately 8 million questions. She starts with the most pressing. What exactly is a fated mate?
A soul bond, Drew says.
Rare among Lycans, almost unheard of between Lycan and human. When it occurs, it's absolute. 2 souls recognizing they're meant to be together. You felt it when our eyes met. That pull, that certainty. I felt something, Leah admits. But that doesn't mean I understand it or accept it. I know, Drew says, surprising her. You've been told all your life that love, connection, is something that comes after marriage, after duty, after political considerations. The mate bond doesn't work that way. It exists first, and everything else has to arrange itself around it. That sounds terrifying. It is, Drew agrees. Because it means you can't control it or negotiate it or ignore it. It simply is. Leah digests this in silence for a while. Then, why did you risk so much to claim me? You disrupted a major political alliance. You've probably started a diplomatic crisis. Carl might actually start a war over this. Carl can try, Drew says with zero concern. But to answer your question, I didn't risk anything. I claimed what was mine. The political consequences are irrelevant compared to the alternative. Which was? Drew's eyes lock onto hers with burning intensity. Watching you marry someone else. Knowing you were suffering. Feeling the mate bond pull at me every second while you were trapped in that cage. That wasn't an option, Leah. I'd burn down every kingdom in the realm before I'd let that happen. The possessive certainty in his voice should frighten her. Instead, it makes something in her chest tighten with emotion she doesn't have a name for. I'm not a possession, she says, testing him. No. Drew agrees immediately. You're my equal, my partner, my mate, which means your happiness matters as much as mine. Your choices carry the same weight as mine, and your voice in my court will be absolute. That's a lot of responsibility for someone who is being trained to smile and stay silent. Drew's smile is sharp. Good thing you're not that person anymore. The Northern Dominion reveals itself on the third day, a vast territory of pine forests, mountain ranges, and a capital city built of black stone that rises from the landscape like it grew there naturally. The citadel dominates the skyline, more fortress than palace, beautiful in its harsh, uncompromising way. Leah stares at it through the carriage window. This is her home now. This foreign place full of lichens who will see her as an outsider at best, a threat at worst. They won't accept me, she says quietly. Some won't. Drew agrees, his honesty brutal. You're human. You have no supernatural abilities. You were meant for a human prince, which makes you politically complicated.
Some will see you as weak.
Others will see you as a liability. That's not reassuring. I'm not trying to reassure you. I'm being honest. Drew leans forward, his golden eyes intense. But here's what else is true. You're my fated mate, which by Leakin law makes you Luna Queen. You have authority second only to mine. And anyone who disrespects you answers to me. You can't fight every battle for me. No, Drew says. But I can make sure you have the tools to fight your own battles. Starting tomorrow, you'll begin training. Training for what? Drew's smile is almost predatory. Everything. They arrive at the citadel at dusk, when the black stone seems to absorb the fading light. Lichens line the streets, dozens of them, watching the Alpha Kings return with their new mate. Leah feels the weight of their stares, their assessment, their judgment. A woman approaches as they dismount, tall, with silver-streaked dark hair and eyes like chips of amber ice. She's beautiful in a harsh way, elegant and dangerous in equal measure. Alpha King, she says, bowing with precision that suggests military discipline. Welcome home.
And
her gaze shifts to Leah, her expression unreadable. This must be the human everyone's talking about. Commander Sylvia Greaves, head of the Citadel Guard, and my beta commander. Drew introduces. Sylvia, this is Leah Bohr. My mate. You're Luna Queen. Sylvia's expression doesn't change, but something flickers in her eyes. Surprise? Disapproval? Of course. Welcome to the Northern Dominion, Luna. The title sounds wrong in her mouth, like she's testing how it feels. Thank you, Leah says, keeping her voice steady despite her nerves. I look forward to learning about the Dominion. I'm sure you have much to learn, Sylvia says, and the emphasis on much makes it clear she doesn't think Leah is capable of learning it. Drew's jaw tightens, but before he can respond, another figure emerges from the citadel, a young man perhaps Leah's age, with dark curly hair and an infectious grin that seems completely at odds with the serious atmosphere. Ignore Sylvia, he says cheerfully, striding forward and offering Leah his hand. She thinks anyone who smiles is suspicious. I'm Nathan Cross, Drew's younger brother and chief diplomatic disaster. Younger brother? Leah looks between Nathan and Drew. They look nothing alike. Half-brother, Nathan clarifies, still grinning. Different mothers. Same terrible taste in dramatic gestures. I heard you crashed a royal ceremony and claimed your mate in front of both courts. Very on brand. Despite everything, Leah finds herself smiling. I was the one being claimed, actually. Even better. Nathan's enthusiasm is genuine. The court's been boring for months. You're going to shake everything up. Nathan, Drew says with the tone of someone who's said this 1,000 times, stop terrorizing my mate. I'm not terrorizing, I'm welcoming. There's a difference. Nathan turns back to Leah. Seriously though, if you need anything, a tour, translation of court politics, someone to explain why lichens growl at each other like that's a conversation, I'm your guy. I'll remember that, Leah says, finding herself genuinely grateful for his warmth in this cold, imposing place. Drew leads Leah inside the citadel, through corridors of black stone lit by torches that cast dancing shadows. Everything is larger than human scale. Doorways tall enough for Drew to walk through without ducking, furniture built for people his size, ceilings that seem impossibly high. They reach a suite of chambers that takes Leah's breath away. It's not the opulent gold and silk luxury of the Val Saran Palace. Instead, it's beautiful in an austere way, dark wood, for throws, windows that overlook endless forest, a fireplace large enough to walk into. These are your chambers, Drew says. Mine are connected through that door, but I won't use it without permission. You have complete privacy. Leah turns to him, suddenly aware of how alone they are. What happens now? Now you rest. Tomorrow, we begin preparing you for court, teaching you lichen law, pack dynamics, court politics. You'll train with weapons, lichens respect strength, and you need to be able to defend yourself. You'll learn our language, our customs, our history. That sounds like a lot. It is, Drew agrees. But you survived 6 months of training to be Carl's perfect princess. You can survive this. What if I can't? Drew steps closer, and Leah doesn't step back. His hand lifts slowly, giving her time to refuse, before gently cupping her cheek. You can. I've seen humans survive in lichen courts before. The ones who failed tried to be something they weren't. The ones who succeeded embraced who they were and demanded respect for it. You're smart, observant, and stronger than you realize. Be that person and you'll be fine. His touch is warm, careful, and Leah feels that pull again, the mate bond humming between them like a plucked string. Why does it feel like this? She whispers. Like I've known you forever? Because, in a sense, you have, Drew says. The bond exists outside time. Your soul recognizes mine, because they were always meant to find each other. It should sound like poetry or fantasy. Instead, it feels like truth. Drew's hand drops, and he steps back.
Rest.
Tomorrow begins early. He leaves through the connecting door, closing it gently behind him, and Leah is alone in a foreign palace in a foreign land, claimed by a king she doesn't know but somehow feels bound to. She should be terrified. And part of her is. But another part, the part that spent 6 months being slowly erased to fit someone else's requirements, feels the first stirring of something she'd forgotten existed.
Hope.
So Leah just got yanked out of a royal ceremony by a 7-foot alpha king who claimed she's his fated mate, survived an assassination attempt orchestrated by her ex-fiancé, who has the audacity to be mad about losing his property, and is now in a black stone fortress surrounded by lichens who definitely think humans are the weak link in the food chain. Also, Drew's half-brother is out here being an absolute ray of sunshine in this otherwise terrifying situation, which, honestly, Nathan might be the real MVP of this story. But can we talk about how Carl tried to murder Leah because his ego couldn't handle being rejected in public? That man really said, if I can't have her as my bride, no one can have her alive, and expected that to work out well for him.
Buddy. My guy.
The Alpha King was right there. If you want to see how Leah survives lichen court politics, spoiler, she's about to become way more dangerous than anyone expects, what Drew's actual deal is, because fated mate doesn't fully explain why he risked a war, and whether Carl is stupid enough to actually try something again. Yes, he is. Subscribe now because this story is about to get so much more complicated. Trust me, the mate bond drama is just the beginning. Leah's first full day in the Northern Dominion begins at dawn with someone pounding on her door. She struggles out of bed, the softest bed she's ever slept in, which makes the wake-up even more offensive, and opens the door to find Commander Sylvia standing there in training leathers, her expression unimpressed. "You have 15 minutes to dress appropriately and meet me in the training courtyard," Sylvia says without preamble. The Luna Queen doesn't get to sleep in. Before Leah can respond, Sylvia turns and leaves. Leah finds training clothes laid out in her wardrobe, leather pants, a fitted tunic, boots that actually fit. She dresses quickly and follows the directions Nathan gave her yesterday to the training courtyard. What she finds there makes her stop in her tracks. The courtyard is filled with lichens, dozens of them, ranging from young trainees to grizzled warriors. All of them stop what they're doing when Leah enters, their eyes tracking her movement with predatory focus. Sylvia stands in the center, arms crossed. "Everyone, meet our new Luna Queen." Leah bore, human, no combat training, no supernatural abilities. Her tone makes it clear what she thinks of these deficiencies. "She'll be training with us daily. I expect you all to treat her with the appropriate level of challenge." The way she says appropriate level of challenge sounds like a threat. "Commander," Leah says, keeping her voice steady, "perhaps we should start with." "Your first lesson," Sylvia interrupts, "is that Luna Queens don't make excuses or ask for special treatment. Defend yourself." She moves. Leah barely has time to register the attack before Sylvia is on her, moving with speed that seems impossible. Leah tries to dodge, too slow. Sylvia sweeps her legs out from under her, and Leah hits the ground hard enough to drive the air from her lungs. "Again," Sylvia orders. Leah struggles to her feet. Sylvia attacks again. Leah goes down again. This pattern repeats 7 times before Leah realizes what's happening. Sylvia isn't teaching her. She's humiliating her in front of the pack, proving that the human Luna is weak, inadequate, unworthy of her position. The 8th time Sylvia attacks, Leah doesn't try to dodge or fight. Instead, she drops flat, letting Sylvia's momentum carry her over Leah's body. It's not skilled, it's desperate, but it works. Sylvia stumbles, caught off guard. Leah scrambles to her feet, breathing hard. "I'm not a Leakin. I'll never be as fast or as strong as you. But I'm not stupid. If this is a test to see if I'll give up, you'll be waiting a long time." Sylvia's expression doesn't change, but something glimmers in her eyes that might be respect. "Good. You can be taught." She turns to the assembled lichens. "Someone get her a training sword. Let's see if she's as stubborn with a blade." The next hour is brutal. Leah is paired with younger trainees who still outmatch her in every physical category, but at least they're not trying to humiliate her. She learns that Leakin combat training focuses on speed and aggression, overwhelming opponents with relentless attacks. She also learns that she's terrible at it. By the time Sylvia calls a halt, Leah is bruised, exhausted, and fairly certain she's pulled muscles she didn't know existed. "You'll report here every morning at dawn," Sylvia says. "Miss a day, and you answer to me." "Understood," Leah manages. As the trainees disperse, Nathan appears, looking horrified. "Sylvia made you spar on your first day? That's wow. Even for her, that's aggressive." "I survived," Leah says, though survived might be generous. "Barely." Nathan offers his arm. "Come on. There's a healer who owes me a favor, and you need treatment before you face the court this afternoon." "The court? Oh, did you not mention? You're being formally presented to the council and major pack families this afternoon. It's a whole thing. Very official, very formal, very please don't embarrass us in front of the nobles." Leah wants to cry, or possibly lie down and refuse to move. "I can't do this." "Sure you can," Nathan says cheerfully. "You already survived Sylvia trying to break you, which honestly is the hardest part. The council is just politics. You're great at politics." "How would you know?" "Because you navigated 6 months with Prince Carl without murdering him or yourself, which demonstrates remarkable restraint and political acumen. The healer, a kind elderly woman named Alara, fixes most of Leah's injuries with a combination of herbs and magic that makes Leah's skin tingle. By the time she's finished, the worst of the bruising has faded. "That commander is testing you," Alara says quietly. She's loyal to Drew, but she doesn't trust humans. She's seen too many political marriages fail, too many Luna queens who couldn't handle the pressure. She wants you to quit, so she can tell Drew she was right. "I won't quit," Leah says. "Good." Alara smiles. "We need someone with spine in that position." The formal presentation to the council takes place in the Great Hall, a massive room with vaulted ceilings and stone pillars carved to look like ancient trees. Drew sits on a throne of black wood, and an empty throne beside him waits for Leah. The council consists of 15 Lycans, heads of major families, military commanders, and spiritual leaders. They watch Leah approach with expressions ranging from curious to hostile. Drew rises as Leah reaches the dais. He's dressed formally in black leather and fur, a silver crown resting on his dark hair. He looks every inch the Alpha King, powerful, dangerous, absolute. "Members of the council," Drew's voice carries across the hall. "I present Leah Bohr, my fated mate, and your Luna Queen." Leah sits in the throne beside Drew, acutely aware that it's too large for her, that she looks like a child playing dress-up. A male Lycan with iron-gray hair speaks first. "Alpha King, with respect, we have concerns about a human Luna. The position requires strength, leadership, and understanding of pack dynamics that a human cannot possess." "Your concerns are noted, Lord Ashford," Drew says, his tone making it clear he doesn't care about those concerns. "The position of Luna has always been held by Lycans," another council member adds, a woman with sharp features and sharper eyes. "This breaks centuries of tradition." "Tradition is not law," Drew counters. "And the mate bond supersedes tradition. Leah is Luna by right of destiny, not appointment. That's not up for debate." "Then what is up for debate?" Lord Ashford demands. "Nothing," Drew says flatly. "I'm informing you, not asking permission." The tension in the room is suffocating. Leah realizes that Drew's absolute authority is creating resentment, that forcing the council to accept her without giving them a voice will only make things worse. "May I speak?" Leah asks quietly. Drew looks at her, surprise flickering in his eyes. "Of course." Leah stands, which feels bold and terrifying. "I understand your concerns. I would have the same ones if our positions were reversed. You're right, I'm not a Lycan. I don't have supernatural abilities. I'm not what you expected or wanted in a Luna Queen." She pauses, meeting the eyes of various council members. "But I'm what you have. And I'm not asking you to pretend I'm something I'm not. I'm asking you to give me a chance to prove that different doesn't mean inadequate. I'll learn your laws. I'll train with your warriors. I'll earn my position through action, not just through a mate bond one didn't choose any more than you did." The silence that follows is heavy. Then Lord Ashford says slowly, "That's more reasonable than expected." "I'm full of surprises," Leah says, and a few council members actually smile. The meeting doesn't end with acceptance, but it ends without open hostility. As the council disperses, Drew leans close to Leah. "That was well done. You gave them what they needed without undermining your own authority." "I learned from 6 months of navigating Queen Marianne's court," Leah says. "Sometimes the best way to win is to acknowledge the other side's position before asserting your own." Drew's smile is genuine. "You're going to be better at this than you think." That night, as Leah lies in bed reviewing the overwhelming day, she hears a knock on the connecting door. "Come in," she calls. Drew enters, carrying a tray with tea and what looks like fresh bread. "I thought you might be hungry. You didn't eat much at dinner." Leah sits up. "I was too nervous." Drew sets the tray on the table near her bed and settles into a chair that looks comically small under his frame. "How are you handling everything?" I feel like I'm drowning and learning to swim simultaneously, Leah admits. That's normal. You're doing remarkably well for someone thrust into an entirely foreign culture. Sylvia doesn't think so. Sylvia doesn't think anyone is good enough, Drew says. But she wouldn't waste time training someone she thought was hopeless. The fact that she's pushing you means she thinks you have potential. She has a strange way of showing it. Drew's expression grows serious. I need to tell you something. There are rumors, whispers in court, that Prince Carl is not accepting your loss gracefully. My intelligence network suggests he's reaching out to noble families here, trying to build support for challenging our bond. Leah's stomach drops. Can he do that? Legally?
No.
The mate bond is absolute. But politically? He can cause problems. Sow discord. Turn public opinion against you. Drew leans forward. I'm telling you this because you need to be aware. You have enemies, Leah. Some obvious, some hidden. Trust carefully. Even here? Among your own people? Especially here. Power attracts ambitious people. Some will see you as a way to get to me. Others will see you as a weakness they can exploit. Leah thinks about Sylvia's hostility, Lord Ashford's skepticism, the way the trainees watched her struggle this morning. How do I know who to trust? You watch. You listen. You pay attention to who stands with you when it costs them something. Drew's eyes are intense. Trust Nathan, he's loyal to a fault. Trust Alara, she has no political ambitions. Beyond that, be cautious until people prove themselves. What about you? Leah asks. Do I trust you? Drew is silent for a long moment. I hope so. But I understand if you need time. I disrupted your entire life. Claimed you without asking. Brought you to a place where you're surrounded by people who don't want you here. Trust should be earned, not demanded. Honesty is almost painful. And it makes Leah trust him more than any reassurance would have. Thank you for the tea, she says. And for being honest.
Drew stands.
Rest well. Tomorrow will be just as challenging. After he leaves, Leah sips the tea and thinks about trust, about power, about the strange position she now occupies. She's Luna Queen in name, but in reality, she's fighting for every scrap of respect and recognition.
She fell asleep planning.
Not how to survive. She's done enough of that. How to win. Leah's second week at the Citadel brings a routine. Brutal mornings with Sylvia, afternoons studying Leakin law and language with tutors Drew has assigned, evenings attending council meetings or court functions where she's displayed like a curiosity. She's learning that the Northern Dominion is more politically complex than it appears. Power is divided among family lines, military commanders, and spiritual leaders, all of whom have their own agendas and loyalties. And she's learning that not everyone is happy about Drew's absolute authority. Nathan is the one who finally explains it to her, late one evening when they're both in the library. He's been teaching her conversational Leakin, the informal speech used among pack members rather than the formal court language. There's a faction in court, Nathan says quietly, checking to make sure they're alone. They call themselves the Shadow Council, though that's probably more dramatic than necessary. They're nobles who think Drew has too much power, that he's too aggressive at his policies, too willing to risk conflict with human kingdoms. Who leads them? Leah asks. That's the problem, I don't know. They're careful, operating through proxies and subtle influence rather than open opposition. But I know they exist, and I know they see you as a symbol of everything wrong with Drew's rule. Because I'm human. Because you represent Drew breaking tradition to follow his instincts rather than political calculation. They think he's becoming unstable, that the mate bond has made him irrational. Leah's blood runs cold. Are you saying they'd try to remove him? I'm saying they're building toward something. I don't know what yet, but you need to be careful. If they can't attack Drew directly, they'll attack through you. The warning proves prescient 2 days later. Leah is walking through the Citadel Gardens, one of the few places she can find solitude, when she encounters Lord Ashford. The gray-haired council member has largely ignored her since the formal presentation, so his sudden appearance feels deliberate. Luna Queen, he says with a bow that might be respectful or might be mocking. A moment of your time? Leah's instincts scream warning, but refusing would be politically unwise. Of course, Lord Ashford. They walk in silence for a moment before Ashford speaks. You're in a difficult position, my lady. Human, untrained, thrust into a role you never asked for. It must be overwhelming. I'm managing, Leah says carefully. Indeed. You're more resilient than expected. Ashford pauses by a fountain, his expression thoughtful. But resilience only goes so far. The truth is, your presence here creates problems. Political complications with the human kingdoms, division within our own court. Some believe it would be better for everyone if you stepped aside. The threat is subtle, but unmistakable. Stepped aside to where exactly? Back to your family, perhaps? With appropriate compensation, of course. An annulment of the mate bond. You can't annul a mate bond, Leah interrupts. It's not a legal contract, it's a soul connection. Technically correct, Ashford concedes. But you could choose to leave. Reject the bond. Drew would be devastated, certainly, but he would eventually recover. And you would be free to live your life without the burden of being Luna. Leah stops walking and faces Ashford directly. Who sent you to make this offer? Because I know you didn't think of it yourself. Ashford's mask slips slightly. I'm speaking for myself. No, you're not. You're speaking for the Shadow Council, or whatever they're calling themselves. The nobles who want Drew weakened, who see me as a convenient pressure point. Leah's voice hardens. Tell them I'm not leaving. And tell them that if they want to challenge my position, they should do it openly instead of sending proxies. She walks away before Ashford can respond, her heart pounding but her steps steady. When she reports the conversation to Drew that evening, his rage is palpable. Ashford approached you directly? He's bolder than I thought. He's testing me, Leah says. Seeing if I'll crack under pressure. It's actually useful. Now we know the Shadow Council is real, and they're making moves. Drew looks at her with something like pride. You're starting to think like a political operator. I had good teachers. 6 months of Queen Marianne's court taught me how power works when it's hidden. What do you want to do about it? The question surprises Leah. Drew is asking her opinion, treating her as an actual partner rather than something to be protected. I want to find out who's really leading the Shadow Council, Leah says. Ashford is a follower, not a leader. Someone else is orchestrating this. Agreed. I'll have Nathan start investigating. He's better at court intrigue than military intelligence. Over the next week, Nathan works his magic. He attends parties, gossips with nobles, follows threads of influence until patterns emerge. He reports his findings in Drew's private study, with Leah and Sylvia present. The Shadow Council has at least 7 confirmed members, Nathan says, spreading documents on Drew's desk. Lord Ashford, Lady Vivian Sterling. Sterling. Sylvia interrupts. She's related to the Commander Sterling who served your father, Drew. Distantly, Nathan confirms. But she's using that connection to gain influence. She's also been corresponding regularly with someone in Val Saran, letters that go through private couriers, not official channels. Carl. Leah breathes. She's working with Prince Carl. It gets worse, Nathan continues. The Shadow Council isn't just trying to undermine you politically. They're planning to challenge the mate bond itself.
How? Drew demands.
It's not subject to legal challenge. Not legally. Magically. Nathan pulls out another document. They've hired a sorcerer from the Eastern Territories. Someone who specializes in bond magic. I don't know exactly what they're planning, but it involves disrupting or severing the mate bond. The room goes silent. That's not just political maneuvering, Sylvia says, her voice hard. That's an act of war against the Alpha King. It's treason, Drew agrees, his eyes flashing gold. And they'll answer for it. We need proof, Leah says. Everyone turns to look at her. If you move against the Shadow Council without solid evidence, you'll look paranoid and tyrannical. It'll validate everything they're saying about you. We need to catch them in the act. That requires walking into their trap, Sylvia points out. So we spring the trap on our terms, Leah says. They want to disrupt the mate bond? Let them try. But we'll be ready. Drew looks at her with an expression that's equal parts concern and admiration. You're volunteering to be bait. I'm volunteering to end this threat before it grows larger. The longer the Shadow Council operates, the more support they gain. We need to expose them now, decisively. She's right, Nathan says reluctantly. Though I hate agreeing with a plan that puts you in danger. The plan takes shape over the next several days. Nathan spreads carefully crafted rumors that Leah will be attending a ritual at the Sacred Grove, a spiritual site outside the Citadel where mate bonds are traditionally blessed. The rumor also mentions that Drew will be delayed by council business, that Leah will be there with minimal guard. It's bait too obvious to be believed, except that Nathan makes it look like he's trying to keep it secret, which makes it believable. The night of the ritual, Leah walks to the Sacred Grove with only 2 guards, both handpicked by Sylvia and prepared for the trap. The grove is beautiful in the moonlight, ancient trees forming a natural cathedral around a stone altar. Leah doesn't have to wait long. A figure emerges from the shadows, a robed sorcerer, his face hidden by a hood. Behind him come 5 others, including Lady Vivian Sterling and Lord Ashford. Luna Queen, the sorcerer says, his voice thin and reedy. I'm afraid you won't be Luna for much longer. Are you going to kill me? Leah asks, keeping her voice steady despite her fear. Nothing so crude. I'm simply going to sever the mate bond between you and the Alpha King. Without that connection, you'll have no claim to your position. You'll be free to return to your human life, and Drew will be free to choose a more suitable mate. And if I don't consent, consent is irrelevant. The magic works regardless. The sorcerer begins chanting, and Leah feels something pulling at her chest, the mate bond being attacked. It's agonizing, like someone is trying to rip her heart out from the inside. She drops to her knees, gasping. And that's when Drew arrives. He comes through the trees like a nightmare-given form, his wolf surging to the surface until he's something between human and beast, 7 feet of rage and power. Behind him are Sylvia, Nathan, and 20 elite guards. Step away from my mate, Drew snarls, his voice barely human. The sorcerer tries to finish the spell, but Sylvia is faster. She crosses the distance and breaks the sorcerer's concentration with a vicious strike that sends him sprawling. The Shadow Council members try to flee. They don't make it far. Within minutes, all of them are subdued, bound, and kneeling in the grove while Drew looms over them like an avenging god. Treason, he says, his voice dead. Against your Alpha King, against your Luna Queen, against the very foundation of our laws. You will stand trial before the full council. And when you're found guilty, and you will be found guilty, you will face the consequences. Lady Vivian Sterling has the audacity to speak. We acted to protect the Dominion from your irrational decisions. Drew cuts her off. You acted to protect your own power. Don't insult me by pretending it was noble. He turns to Leah, and the rage in his eyes softens to concern. Are you hurt? Leah is shaking from the pain and adrenaline, but she stands.
Ai fine.
The bond held. Drew pulls her close, and Leah feels the mate bond settling back into place, no longer under attack. The relief is overwhelming. That was reckless, Drew murmurs into her hair. That was necessary, Leah counters. Now we have evidence and witnesses. The Shadow Council is finished. The trial takes place 3 days later. It's public, with pack members crowding into the Great Hall to witness justice. The evidence is damning. The sorcerer's confession, letters between Lady Vivian and Prince Carl plotting to undermine Drew's authority, Lord Ashford's testimony trying to save himself by implicating others. The sentences are harsh but legal. Exile for most, execution for Lady Vivian as the ringleader. Leah watches from her throne beside Drew, feeling the weight of power and responsibility settling over her like a mantle. After the trial, Nathan finds her on the battlements, staring out at the forest. "You did good," he says. "Scary good, honestly. You outmaneuvered nobles who've been playing court politics for decades." "I just did what needed doing." "No, you did what a Luna Queen needs to do. You protected your mate, your position, and your pack. That's not nothing." Leah turns to him. "Do you think it's over?" "The challenges." Nathan laughs. "Not even close. You're human, you're new, and you just proved you're dangerous. People will test you constantly. But now they know you're not easy prey. That matters." "What about Prince Carl?" "Lady Vivian was working with him." "That," Nathan says grimly, "is a problem for another day." Hold up. Leah just let herself be used as bait to catch a literal shadow council trying to magically sever her soul bond, watched them get arrested medieval spell, and then sat calmly in her throne while they were sentenced for treason. This woman went from perfect princess training to political mastermind in like 3 weeks. Also, Drew showed up in the sacred grove looking like something out of a nightmare, and I'm pretty sure the Shadow Council members are still having nightmares about it. Can we also acknowledge that Lady Vivian really thought, let's just magically delete the mate bond, was a plan that would work? Like a girl, you're dealing with an alpha king who crashed a royal ceremony and basically said, "I'll fight anyone." What made you think he wouldn't notice his mate's soul being attacked? And now Prince Carl is apparently still plotting from Val Saran because his ego is so fragile, he can't let this go.
Buddy.
My guy. You lost. Accept it and move on with your life. If you want to see what Carl's next terrible plan is, because there will be another one, how Leah continues to terrify nobles who think humans are weak, and what happens when the mate bond gets really tested, subscribe now because we're heading into the final chapters and it's about to get absolutely wild. For 2 weeks after the Shadow Council's exposure, life at the Citadel stabilizes into something approaching normal. Leah's training with Sylvia becomes less humiliation and more actual instruction. The council treats her with wary respect. Even the pack members who were skeptical start acknowledging her as Luna. But Drew remains on edge, his intelligence network reporting increased activity from Val Saran. Carl is planning something, Drew says one evening as they share dinner in his chambers. It's become their routine, away from the formality of court, they can actually talk. "My spies report that he's been meeting with military advisors, that supplies are being moved toward our border." Would he actually start a war over this? Leah asks, though she already knows the answer. She knows Carl. His pride won't allow him to accept defeat. "He won't start a war," Drew says. "But he'll create an incident. Something that forces my hand, makes me look like the aggressor. He's trying to turn public opinion against me in the human kingdoms." What kind of incident? Before Drew can answer, Nathan bursts into the room without knocking, his face pale. "We have a problem. A big one." Drew stands immediately. What happened? "A diplomatic envoy from Val Saran just arrived at our border. They're claiming that Leah was kidnapped against her will, that the mate bond was fabricated using magic, and they're demanding her return to Val Saran to face trial for breach of marriage contract." Leah's stomach drops. That's insane. The mate bond was verified by court sorcerers. "Theirs, not ours," Nathan interrupts. "They're claiming your sorcerers were compromised, and they've brought their own magic users to perform an independent verification." "This is the incident," Leah breathes. "Carl is trying to create a legitimate legal claim to force me back." "It won't work," Drew says, his voice hard. "The mate bond is absolute. No amount of political maneuvering changes that." "Unless they have a sorcerer powerful enough to fake the verification," Nathan says grimly. "If their magic users claim the bond is artificial, it creates enough doubt to justify military action. Carl doesn't need to win legally. He just needs an excuse to mobilize troops." Drew's eyes flash gold. "Then we don't let them run the verification. I'll refuse the envoy entry." "That plays into Carl's hands," Leah argues. "If you refuse, It looks like you're hiding something. Like the bond really is fabricated and you're afraid they'll expose it. So, what do you suggest? Leah thinks quickly. 6 months of navigating Queen Marianne's court taught her that sometimes the best way to win is to accept the challenge and control how it's executed. We let them verify the bond, she says. But we do it publicly, in front of both courts. If they try to fake the results, their lies will be exposed to everyone. Carl's gambit only works if it happens in secret. Drew looks at her like she's suggested they throw themselves off a cliff. That's an enormous risk. If their sorcerers are powerful enough, then we make sure ours are more powerful. Do you trust your court sorcerers? With my life. Then trust them with this. The verification is arranged for 3 days later, giving both sides time to prepare. The Great Hall is packed with members of both courts, Lycans from the Northern Dominion and a human delegation from Val Saran, including, to Leah's dismay, Queen Marianne herself. Prince Carl is notably absent, sending his mother as proxy. Coward. Leah stands beside Drew on the dais, her hand in his. She can feel the mate bond thrumming between them. Warm, certain, absolutely real. But the fear that magic could somehow fake or hide that connection has her stomach churning. The Val Saran sorcerers are impressive, 3 robed figures radiating power. But Drew's court sorcerers, led by an ancient woman named Keeper Isadora, are something else entirely. Isadora is over 200 years old, her power so vast it makes the air itself feel heavy. Queen Marianne speaks first. We are here to verify the legitimacy of the claimed mate bond between Alpha King Drew Dang and my son's betrothed, Leah Boar. If the bond is genuine, we will withdraw our objection. If it is not, we demand Leah's return to face justice in Val Saran. Agreed, Drew says, his voice carrying absolute authority. Let the verification begin. The Val Saran sorcerers move first. They circle Leah and Drew, chanting in a language Leah doesn't recognize. Their magic probes at the mate bond, and Leah gasps at the intrusion. It's not painful, but it's invasive, like being examined from the inside out. After several long minutes, the lead sorcerer steps back and announces, "We detect magical interference." The bond shows signs of artificial strengthening, consistent with manipulation magic. We cannot verify its authenticity. The room erupts. That's impossible, Nathan shouts. The bond was verified when Drew first claimed her. By sorcerers loyal to the Alpha King, Queen Marianne interrupts smoothly. Hardly unbiased witnesses. Then let me verify, Keeper Isadora says, her voice cutting through the chaos like a blade. She approaches the dais slowly, her ancient eyes fixed on Leah and Drew. When she raises her hands, the magic that flows from her is like standing in the eye of a storm, vast, terrifying, absolute. Isadora doesn't just probe at the mate bond. She examines it from every angle, traces its origins, follows its threads through time itself. The examination takes longer than the Val Saran sorcerers, and it's more intense. Leah feels like her soul is being laid bare. Finally, Isadora lowers her hands. She turns to face both courts, her expression grave. The mate bond between Alpha King Drew Dang and Luna Queen Leah Boar is genuine, ancient, and untampered. It existed before they ever met, a thread of destiny waiting to be recognized. What the Val Saran sorcerers detected as artificial strengthening is simply the natural intensity of a true mate bond awakening. She turns to glare at the Val Saran sorcerers. You either lack the skill to recognize a genuine bond, or you are instructed to lie. Which is it? The lead Val Saran sorcerer's face goes pale. He glances at Queen Marianne, whose expression has gone carefully blank. We may have been mistaken in our interpretation. May have been. Isadora's voice could freeze fire. You accuse the Alpha King of fabricating a sacred bond. That's not a mistake. That's either incompetence or malice. I suggest you clarify which. Under Isadora's withering stare and the weight of both courts watching, the Val Saran sorcerers break. The lead sorcerer admits, "We were encouraged to report certain findings, regardless of what we actually detected." The admission is devastating. Queen Marianne's face goes from blank to furious as she realizes her son's plan has not only failed, but backfired spectacularly. This delegation is concluded, Drew says, his voice like thunder. The mate bond is verified. Queen Marianne, take this message back to your son. Leah is my mate, my Luna, and my queen. She's not leaving. She's not returning to Val Saran. And if Prince Carl sends another envoy with false accusations, I will consider it an act of war. Queen Marianne rises with rigid dignity. This isn't over, Alpha King. Yes, Drew says quietly. It is. The Val Saran delegation leaves in disgrace, their sorcerers stripped of credibility and Queen Marianne facing the humiliation of her son's scheming being exposed publicly. As the hall empties, Leah finally allows herself to breathe. Drew pulls her close, and she feels the mate bond settling, no longer under scrutiny. That was terrifying, she admits. You were magnificent, Drew counters, suggesting the public verification was a risk, but it worked. Carl can't try this again. He's lost all credibility. He'll find another way to cause problems. His pride won't let him stop. Then we'll deal with whatever comes next. Together. That night, as Leah prepares for bed, she finds a letter that someone has slipped under her door. The handwriting is elegant, unfamiliar. Luna Queen, you have proven yourself worthy in ways that surprise even those who wanted to support you. The pack accepts you not because you were chosen, but because you've earned your position through courage and intelligence. But dangers remain. Prince Carl's humiliation today will only fuel his obsession. He won't stop until he's either destroyed or satisfied that you've suffered appropriately for rejecting him. Watch for threats from unexpected directions. Not all enemies announce themselves openly. A friend. Leah doesn't know who sent the letter, but the warning echoes in her mind long after she's fallen asleep. The formal coronation ceremony, the one that will officially crown Leah as Luna Queen before all the Leaken territories, is scheduled for the first day of the winter moon, 3 months after her arrival at the Citadel. Drew wanted to hold it immediately, but Leah convinced him to wait. She needed time to prove herself, to earn the pack's acceptance, to transform from the human Drew claimed into our Luna Queen. Now, watching seamstresses fit her for the coronation gown, midnight blue silk embroidered with silver wolves, Leah reflects on how much has changed. She's not the woman who stood in the Val Saran ballroom 6 months ago, being prepared to marry Prince Carl. That woman was being erased, reshaped into someone else's requirements. That woman had no voice, no power, no choices. This woman, the one looking back from the mirror, is different. Harder, stronger, more dangerous. This woman survived Leaken court politics, exposed to conspiracy, endured magical attacks on her soul bond, and did it all while learning a new language, new customs, new ways of existing in the world. This woman earned her position. You look fierce, Nathan observes, leaning against the doorframe. In a good way, like you're about to go to war rather than a coronation. Maybe I am, Leah says. Sylvia says there are still nobles who question whether I deserve the position. There will always be someone questioning you. That's politics. The difference is now most of the pack respects you, even if they don't like you. That's progress. Huge progress. 3 months ago, they thought you'd break under pressure or run back to the human kingdoms. Instead, you exposed a conspiracy, survived attempts to sever your mate bond, and publicly humiliated Queen Marianne. You're legitimately scary now. Leah smiles despite herself. I'll take scary over weak. The coronation takes place at sunset, when the light turns golden and the world feels balanced between day and night. The ceremony ground is an ancient stone circle in the forest, where generations of Leaken rulers have been crowned. Hundreds of pack members surround the circle, with representatives from every territory and family. Drew stands at the center in formal regalia, black leather and fur, his crown gleaming in the dying light. He looks every inch the Alpha King. Leah walks into the circle alone, as tradition requires. The walk feels endless, every eye on her, judging whether she's worthy of what's about to happen. Keeper Isadora stands beside Drew, holding the Luna crown, a circlet of silver carved to resemble intertwining wolves. It's beautiful and ancient, worn by Luna queens for centuries. Leah bore. Isadora's voice carries across the gathered crowd. You stand before the pack as a human seeking to become Luna Queen. This is unprecedented. The position has always been held by Lycans, by those who share our blood and our nature. Why should we grant you this honor? It's a ritual question, but the answer matters. Leah has prepared for this moment, rehearsed her response with Drew and Nathan. But standing here, surrounded by Lycans who could tear her apart if they chose, she abandons the prepared speech. I don't share your blood or your nature, Leah says, her voice steady. I'll never be as strong or as fast as you. I'll never shift into wolf form or howl at the moon. But I am Drew's mate. The universe itself bound us together. And in the past 3 months, I've learned that being Luna isn't about physical strength, it's about seeing what the pack needs and having the courage to provide it. She pauses, meeting the eyes of various pack members. I can't promise I'll be the Luna you expected, but I can promise I'll fight for this pack with everything I have. I can promise I'll stand beside your Alpha King not as decoration or political alliance, but as his equal partner. And I can promise that anyone who threatens this pack will answer to me just as surely as they answer to him. The silence that follows is absolute. Then Sylvia steps forward from the crowd. She speaks the truth. I've watched her train, watched her endure trials that would break many Lycans. She's earned her position. Nathan is next. She's my sister now, by bond if not by blood. And she's proven she'll protect this pack, even at risk to herself. One by one, others step forward. Alara the healer. Members of the council. Warriors Leah has trained with. They don't all like her, but they respect her. Keeper Isadora turns to Drew. Alpha King, do you claim this woman as your mate and Luna Queen? I do, Drew says, his voice carrying absolute certainty. Leah bore. Do you accept the bond, the crown, and the responsibility of Luna Queen? Leah meets Drew's eyes. In them she sees the moment he crashed a royal ceremony and changed her life forever. She sees months of learning, growing, becoming someone she barely recognizes. She sees the future, uncertain, dangerous, but hers to shape.
Ida.
Isadora places the crown on Leah's head. The weight settles perfectly, and suddenly Leah feels it, the pack bonds connecting her to hundreds of Lycans. Not magical bonds like the mate bond with Drew, but bonds of leadership and loyalty nonetheless. Rise, Luna Queen Leah Dang, Isadora announces. The pack erupts in howls, hundreds of voices lifted to the darkening sky, acknowledging their new Luna. The sound is primal and beautiful, and Leah feels tears streaming down her face. Drew crosses to her and takes her hand. How does it feel? Terrifying.
Perfect.
Like coming home. That's the pack bond. You're not just my mate anymore. You're theirs too. The celebration that follows is elaborate and overwhelming. There's music, dancing, enough food to feed an army, and toasts that grow increasingly drunk as the night progresses. Leah is congratulated, questioned, and quietly assessed by nobles who are still deciding whether to fully accept her. Late in the evening, when the party has descended into cheerful chaos, Leah escapes to a quiet section of the forest. She needs a moment alone to process everything. She doesn't get one. A figure emerges from the shadows, a woman Leah has never seen before, dressed in traveling leathers and carrying herself like a warrior. Luna Queen, the woman says with a bow. I have a message. From Prince Carl. Leah's blood runs cold. What message? The woman hands her a sealed letter. He wanted you to know that while he's lost the battle, he hasn't lost the war. You'll understand when you read it. She vanishes back into the forest before Leah can call for guards. With shaking hands, Leah opens the letter. Dearest Leah, congratulations on your coronation. I'm sure you feel very proud of yourself, having escaped your obligations to me and found a new life with your Leakin king. But here's what you need to understand. You were mine first. You wore my ring. You signed a contract. And while your precious mate bond might supersede human law, it doesn't supersede my sense of what's owed to me. I'm giving you one final chance. Return to Val Saran. Publicly reject the mate bond. Admit that you were manipulated by Leakin magic and accept responsibility for breaking our betrothal. Do this, and I'll let your family live. Refuse, and I'll have them executed for breach of contract. Your father's signature is on our betrothal agreement. Under Val Saran law, his failure to deliver you as promised is a capital offense. You have 1 month to decide. Choose wisely. Your disappointed betrothed, Prince Carl Louis. The letter drops from Leah's nerveless fingers. Carl has her family hostage. Everything she's built, everything she's earned, everything she's become, and now she's facing an impossible choice. Submit to Carl and lose everything, or refuse and watch her family die. Drew finds her there minutes later, frozen in horror. He reads the letter, and his rage is palpable. We'll send warriors, he says immediately. Rescue your family before Carl can carry out his threat. He'll kill them the moment he sees warriors approaching, Leah says, her voice hollow. He's not bluffing, Drew. His pride demands satisfaction. If I don't give him what he wants, he'll murder my family and call it justice under Val Saran law. Then what do you want to do? Leah looks at the man she's come to love, not because of the mate bond, though she feels it singing between them, but because of who he is. The king who gave her choices when everyone else wanted to control her. The partner who treated her as an equal. The mate who would burn down kingdoms if she asked. I want to end this, Leah says quietly. Permanently. No more threats. No more hostages. No more Prince Carl. What are you suggesting? Leah picks up the letter, her hands no longer shaking. Her voice is steady when she speaks, hard as stone. I'm suggesting we give him what he wants. I'll return to Val Saran, but not as his bride, as his executioner. Drew's smile is dangerous and proud. Tell me your plan, Luna Queen. Let's go to war.
So,
Prince Carl really looked at this situation, where Leah survived assassination attempts, exposed conspiracies, was publicly verified as Drew's fated mate, and got crowned Luna Queen in front of hundreds of Lycans, and decided, you know what? I'm gonna threaten her family, and try this one more time. This man has the survival instincts of a lemming and the emotional intelligence of a potato. He really thinks Leah is going to come crawling back to him after she's spent 3 months becoming someone who scares political operatives and earns respect from actual warriors.
buddy, my guy.
Read the room. But here's where it gets really good. Leah just said she's going back to Val Saran not as a bride but as an executioner, and Drew looked at her like she just suggested his new favorite hobby. These two are about to unleash chaos on Prince Carl's entire existence, and honestly, he deserves every bit of what's coming. If you want to see how Leah and Drew handle Carl's final desperate move, whether the rescue/execution mission goes sideways in spectacular fashion, it will, and what happens when a Luna Queen decides that mercy is optional, subscribe now because the finale is going to be absolutely unhinged. This is the story where the damsel doesn't need rescuing. She needs an army, and a really good plan, and maybe some alibi witnesses. Hit that subscribe button, and let's watch Prince Carl learn the hardest lesson of his life. You don't threaten a Luna Queen's family and expect to survive it. The War Council convenes in Drew's private chambers at midnight. The room is packed. Sylvia and her top commanders, Nathan with maps and intelligence reports, Keeper Isadora radiating barely contained magical power, and Leah herself, No longer the uncertain woman who arrived 3 months ago, but a Luna Queen planning an invasion. This is insane, Sylvia says for the third time, though her tone suggests she's already committed to the plan. Sending the Luna Queen into enemy territory, as bait is necessary, Leah interrupts. Carl won't harm me immediately. His entire plan requires me to publicly reject the mate bond and accept responsibility for breaking our betrothal. He needs me to be compliant and humiliated, not dead. That gives us a window. A narrow window, Nathan points out, studying the maps of Val, Saran's capital. The palace is heavily guarded. Your family is being held in the eastern wing here. We need to extract them, get them out of the city, and cross the border before Carl realizes what's happening. Which is why I need to keep his attention on me, Leah says. If I'm in the throne room making a spectacle, he won't be watching his prisoners. Drew has been silent throughout most of the planning, his jaw tight with barely suppressed rage. Now he speaks, his voice dangerous and low. I don't like using you as bait. I know, Leah says gently. But it's the only way to do this without starting a war that kills thousands.
Carl wants me.
I'm giving him what he wants, just not the way he expects. You're risking everything. So are you, Leah counters. You crashed a royal ceremony and claimed me in front of both courts, remember? We've been risking everything since the beginning. Drew's expression softens fractionally. If anything happens to you, then you'll burn Val Saran to the ground and salt the earth, Leah finishes. I know. You've mentioned it several times. Despite the tension, Nathan snorts with laughter. She's got you there, brother. The plan takes shape over the next several hours. Leah will send a message to Carl accepting his ultimatum, asking for safe passage to Val Saran to make her public renunciation. While Carl prepares his humiliation ceremony, Drew will lead a small strike team, 10 elite warriors capable of moving silently and lethally into Val Saran. They'll extract Leah's family, while she keeps Carl distracted in the throne room. And if something goes wrong, Sylvia demands. If Carl doesn't give you the window you need, if he moves against your family before we can extract them, if he tries to imprison you, then we improvise, Leah says with more confidence than she feels. I've been improvising since Drew claimed me. I'm getting good at it. Keeper Isadora speaks for the first time. I can provide magical protection. A shield charm that will activate if anyone tries to physically harm you. It won't last long, but it should buy enough time for the Alpha King to reach you. How will Drew know if I'm in danger? Leah asks. Isadora produces 2 small crystals that pulse with faint blue light. Bonded stones. Linked through the mate bond. If your heart rate spikes with fear or pain, his stone will alert him. And vice versa. Drew takes both stones, presses one into Leah's palm, and keeps the other. Don't use this unless you're actually dying. I'll come through walls if I have to. Romantic, Nathan observes dryly. 3 days later, Leah crosses the border into Val Saran alone. She's dressed simply, no crown, no royal finery, just the travel clothes of someone making a journey she doesn't want to make. The border guards recognize her immediately and escort her toward the capital, their expressions mixing curiosity and contempt. The city looks exactly as she remembers, beautiful in a cold, calculated way. Every building perfectly positioned, every street meticulously clean, everything designed to impress rather than comfort. It feels suffocating after 3 months in the Northern Dominion's wild forests and black stone fortresses. She's taken directly to the palace, through corridors she walked 100 times during her betrothal training. Servants stare as she passes. Nobles whisper behind their hands. Everyone knows why she's here, to crawl back to Prince Carl and beg forgiveness for choosing the Leakin King. Carl makes her wait for 2 hours in an anteroom before granting an audience. It's a power play, meant to emphasize her diminished status. Leah uses the time to mentally review the plan, check the crystal in her pocket, and remind herself that she's not the woman who left this place. She's Luna Queen now. And Luna Queens don't beg. When she's finally admitted to the throne room, she finds it packed with nobles. Queen Marianne sits on her throne, her expression carved from ice. And Prince Carl, her former betrothed, stands at the center of the room, looking insufferably smug. He's dressed in full royal regalia, clearly planning to make this as theatrical as possible. When he sees Leah, his smile widens. "Leah," he says, her name dripping with false warmth. "How good of you to come to your senses. I knew you would eventually." Leah doesn't curtsy, doesn't bow, stands straight and meets his eyes with the confidence of someone who's survived assassination attempts and political coups. "Where is my family?" "Safe," Carl assures her. "For now. Their continued safety depends entirely on your cooperation." "Then let's get this over with," Leah says. "What do you want me to say?" Carl's smile grows wider. He's clearly been planning this moment. "I want you to tell this court, tell my mother, tell all these witnesses that you were manipulated by leak and magic, that the mate bond was fabricated through dark sorcery, that you've come to understand you belong here, with me, fulfilling your obligations as my betrothed." "That's a lot of lies," Leah observes. Carl's expression hardens. "That's the price of your family's survival. Say what I want, play your role, and they live. Refuse, and I'll have them executed before sunset." Leah pretends to consider this. She lets her shoulders slump slightly, lets her expression crumble just enough to suggest defeat. "You win. I'll say whatever you want." Triumph blazes across Carl's face. He turns to address the court. "You all bear witness. Lady Leah Bohr, formerly my betrothed, has returned to Val Saran to acknowledge her mistakes and accept her rightful place." Leah takes a breath and begins speaking, but not the words Carl expects. "I'm here," Leah says, her voice carrying clearly across the throne room, "to tell you the truth about Prince Carl Louis, about the man you're allowing to inherit this kingdom." Carl's face goes from triumph to rage in an instant. "That's not what we agreed." "We didn't agree to anything," Leah interrupts. "You made threats. I'm calling your bluff." She turns to address Queen Marianne directly, ignoring Carl's sputtering protests. "Your Majesty, your son is not fit to rule. In the 6 months I was betrothed to him, I witnessed cruelty, entitlement, and a complete disregard for the well-being of anyone he considers beneath him. He treated servants like property. He dismissed my opinions with contempt. And when I was claimed by Alpha King Drew Dang through legitimate mate bond, verified by your own court sorcerers, Carl's response was to send assassins to murder me at my own betrothal ceremony." Gasps ripple through the assembled nobles. Queen Marianne's expression doesn't change, but something flickers in her eyes. "That's a lie,"
Carl shouts.
"I did no such. Your personal guards were caught with arrows bearing royal armory markings," Leah continues relentlessly. "The assassination was witnessed by both courts. The evidence is undeniable. And when that failed, when I survived and was crowned Luna Queen, your response was to kidnap my family and threaten their execution unless I returned to you. Is that the action of a rational ruler? Or a man so consumed by wounded pride that he's willing to start a war over a woman who never wanted him?" The throne room erupts into chaos. Nobles arguing, Carl screaming denials, Queen Marianne calling for order. And in the eastern wing of the palace, Drew and his strike team are moving. They infiltrate through the servants' passages, the ones Nathan mapped from intelligence reports. 10 Lycans moving like shadows, their supernatural senses allowing them to avoid guards and patrols with preternatural precision. Leah's family is being held in what's technically guest quarters but is functionally a prison. Her father, mother, and younger brother are confined to 3 rooms with guards at every exit. Drew's team takes out the guards silently, pressure points, quick chokes. Nothing lethal because this mission requires stealth over violence. They breach the door and find Leah's father pacing frantically while her mother tries to comfort her terrified brother. "Who?" Leah's father starts. "Alpha King Drew Dang." Drew introduces himself. "Leah sent me. We're getting you out." "Leah?" Is she creating a distraction in the throne room? Drew says shortly. We have approximately 10 minutes before someone notices you're gone.
Move. Now. They don't argue.
Whatever they think about their daughter marrying a Leaken king, it's clear this is their only chance at survival. The extraction is textbook perfect for exactly 7 minutes. They navigate back through the servants' passages, avoiding patrols, heading toward the tunnel that Nathan identified as leading outside the palace walls. And then an alarm sounds. Someone discovered the guards. Sylvia snarls, appearing beside Drew in her wolf form. We need to move faster. Can't move faster without being seen, Drew counters. But he's already calculating alternatives, paths that might give them. The crystal in his pocket flares hot. Leah is in danger. Back in the throne room, Carl has lost all composure. He's screaming at Leah, calling her names that make the nobles uncomfortable, his face twisted with rage. Queen Marianne watches with an expression that's growing increasingly disturbed, like she's seeing her son clearly for the first time. You humiliated me, Carl screams, advancing on Leah. In front of both courts. You made me look weak. You did that yourself, Leah says, standing her ground even as her heart races. The crystal in her pocket is growing warm. Drew knows she's in danger. She just needs to hold out a little longer. I didn't make you weak. I just exposed what was already there. Carl lunges at her. Isadora's shield charm activates instantly, a barrier of shimmering blue light that stops Carl's hands inches from Leah's throat. He snarls and tries again, pounding against the magical barrier like an animal. Sees her, he screams at the guards. She's lying.
She's a witch.
That's enough. Queen Marianne's voice cuts through the chaos like a blade. Carl freezes. Everyone freezes. Because the Queen's voice carries absolute authority, and she sounds done with all of this. Prince Carl, Queen Marianne says, her voice ice, step away from Lady Leah.
Now.
Mother, she's lying about me. Is she? The Queen stands, and the weight of her presence fills the throne room. Because I've watched you these past months, Carl. I've seen your obsession with her. I've seen the orders you gave that you thought I didn't notice. I've seen the correspondence with nobles in the Northern Dominion, the assassination plots, the escalation of madness. She descends from her throne and crosses to where Carl stands, still trying to reach Leah through the magical barrier. You tried to murder this woman at her own betrothal ceremony because she was claimed by someone more powerful than you. You've been plotting war not to serve Val Saran, but to satisfy your wounded pride. And now you've brought her family here as hostages, threatening execution for a crime that exists only in your imagination. She was mine first. Carl protests, and his voice sounds almost childlike in its petulance. She was never yours, Queen Marianne says quietly. She was purchased for political alliance. And when that alliance became impossible due to circumstances beyond anyone's control, the appropriate response was to negotiate compensation and move on. Instead, you've nearly started a war. You've damaged Val Saran's reputation. You've proven that you're not fit to rule. Carl's face goes from red to white. You can't. I'm your son. And you're a threat to this kingdom. Queen Marianne turns to her guards. Strip Prince Carl of his titles. He's to be exiled to the southern provinces, where he'll live under guard and surveillance for the remainder of his days. He's never to set foot in the capital again. The pronouncement echoes like thunder. Carl starts screaming, protesting, reaching for his mother. The guards have to physically restrain him. Queen Marianne turns to Leah, and her expression is complicated. Respect mixed with resentment, acknowledgement mixed with loss. Your family is in the Eastern Wing, I assume? Leah's eyes widen. The Queen knew. She knew about the rescue attempt and let it proceed. Alpha King Drew is extracting them as we speak, Leah says carefully. Of course he is. Marianne almost smiles. Tell him the southern gate is unguarded for the next hour. A gift, in exchange for not declaring war over my son's indiscretions. It's as close to an apology as Leah will get from a queen. I'll tell him. And Leah? Marianne's voice softens almost imperceptibly. You're well rid of us. Go back to your Leakin king. Be happy. And never come back to Val Saran. I wasn't planning on it, Leah says honestly. Drew meets her at the southern gate exactly 43 minutes after the alarm sounded. He's in his half-wolf form, 7 feet of barely contained violence, his eyes blazing gold. When he sees Leah walking toward him unharmed, the relief on his face is almost painful. You're alive, he breathes.
I've fine.
Carl's been exiled. Queen Marianne chose the kingdom over her son. Smart woman. Drew pulls Leah close, his arms wrapping around her like he's afraid she'll disappear. Don't ever do that again. Go into enemy territory alone to confront a man who wants me dead?
Yes. That. Don't do that.
Leah laughs despite everything. Can't promise that. I'm Luna, queen now. Dangerous situations are apparently part of the job description. Leah's family is waiting with the strike team, looking overwhelmed but alive. Her father approaches cautiously.
Leah.
We need to talk. About everything. About how we treated you, Later, Leah says gently. Right now, we need to cross the border before anyone changes their mind about letting us leave. The journey back to the Northern Dominion takes 2 days. Leah's family is relocated to a secure estate within the Pact's territory, given resources and protection. The reunion is awkward. Years of neglect and pain don't disappear just because they're all safe now. But it's a beginning. When Leah finally returns to the Citadel, the Pact greets her like a returning war hero. She didn't just rescue her family. She neutralized a threat to the entire Dominion, prevented a war, and did it without spilling blood unnecessarily. That night, Drew finds her on the battlements, watching the moon rise over the forest. How do you feel? He asks. Leah considers the question.
Free.
For the first time in my life, completely free. Carl is gone. My family is safe. I have a pack that actually respects me. And I have you. Drew pulls her close, and Leah feels the mate bond humming between them. Warm, certain, absolutely unshakable. You were meant for the prince, Drew murmurs. But the Alpha King claimed you in front of the court. Best decision I ever made. Best thing that ever happened to me. Leo agrees. They stand together in comfortable silence, the Luna Queen and her Alpha King, watching their kingdom sleep peacefully below. The week following Leah's return from Val Saran passes in a blur of diplomatic correspondence and political maneuvering. Queen Marianne sends formal apologies along with substantial reparations, gold, trade agreements, and a treaty promising non-aggression between Val Saran and the Northern Dominion for the next 50 years. She's buying peace, Nathan observes, reading through the treaty terms. And, honestly, it's cheaper than war would have been. It's also smart, Leah adds. She's in the council chamber with Drew, Nathan, Sylvia, and several key advisors, reviewing the aftermath. She neutralized Carl before he could do more damage, appeased us enough to prevent retaliation, and strengthened her own position by proving she'll choose kingdom over family when necessary. You sound almost admiring, Sylvia notes. I can respect tactical competence even in former enemies, Leah says. Queen Marianne did what she had to do. The council votes to accept the treaty. With Carl exiled and Val Saran no longer a threat, the Northern Dominion can focus on internal matters rather than external conflicts. But one piece of business remains unfinished. Leah's family. They've been at the estate for a week, adjusting to life in Leakin territory with varying degrees of success. Leah's younger brother, Thomas, only 14 and more adaptable than their parents, is fascinated by everything. He follows Nathan around asking endless questions about Leakin culture, shifts, and history. Leah's parents are complicated. Her mother tries. She apologizes genuinely, tearfully, for years of neglect and favoritism. She admits that she was so focused on Elizabeth and securing advantageous marriages that she forgot Leah was a person with her own needs and desires. Leah accepts the apology, but the hurt doesn't disappear overnight. Some wounds heal slowly. Her father is worse. He's defensive, argumentative, insisting that everything he did was necessary for family survival. He can't seem to understand that selling your daughter to cover gambling debts isn't actually justified by financial pressure. "I provided for you," he says during one particularly tense conversation. "Put a roof over your head, food on the table, and then sold me to pay off your debts," Leah interrupts, her voice steady but cold. "To a man who treated me like property. And when that fell through, you stood by while Prince Carl threatened to execute you all as leverage to get me back. You're alive because I chose to save you, not because you deserve it." Her father's face turns red, but he has no rebuttal. Because she's right, and they both know it. "I don't need your gratitude," Leah continues. "But I do need you to understand that our relationship, whatever it becomes, will be on my terms now, not yours. I'm not your daughter to barter or your pawn to manipulate. I'm Luna Queen, and if you can't respect that, you can leave." It's the first time in her life Leah has stood up to her father without fear of consequences. The power dynamic has shifted irreversibly. She's not the powerless girl he could control anymore. After a long silence, her father nods stiffly. "Understood. It's not reconciliation, but it's an acknowledgement. And sometimes that's the best you can get." Meanwhile, life at the Citadel continues its complicated dance of politics and power. Lord Ashford, the council member who joined the Shadow Council, has been stripped of his titles and exiled. His lands were redistributed to families that remained loyal. His name is spoken as a warning about the consequences of treason. The council itself has been restructured. New members are appointed, younger Lycans, some from families that were previously excluded from power. Drew is deliberately diversifying the council, preventing any single faction from dominating. "You're building something different," Leah observes one evening as she and Drew review appointment candidates. "Not just maintaining your father's structure, actually changing it." "My father's structure allowed corruption to fester," Drew says. "The Shadow Council existed because too much power was concentrated in too few hands. I'm trying to prevent that. By distributing power more widely, by making sure no one is comfortable enough to plot treason." Drew's smile is sharp. "Fear keeps some people honest. But shared investment in the system keeps more people honest. If everyone has a stake in the Dominion's success, they're less likely to risk destroying it." It's ruthlessly practical political theory. And it's working. The restructured council is more engaged, more productive, and significantly less prone to conspiracy. Leah finds her own role evolving as well. She's not just Drew's mate anymore. She's an active participant in governance. She sits on the council, mediates disputes, and increasingly serves as a bridge between different factions. Her humanity, once seen as a weakness, becomes an asset. She's not bound by centuries of Lycan tradition and therefore sees problems from different angles. She asks questions that Lycans wouldn't think to ask because they're too embedded in their own culture. "Why do we require pack members to participate in monthly hunts?" Leah asks during one council meeting. "What purpose does it serve beyond tradition?" The question is met with confused looks. The monthly hunt has always existed. It's simply what Lycans do. It reinforces pack bonds, someone offers. Shared experience. But what about pack members who are injured, elderly, or have young children? Leah counters. They're penalized for missing hunts, which creates resentment rather than bonding. Could we restructure it as optional rather than mandatory and create alternative bonding activities for those who can't participate? The discussion that follows is productive. Within a month, the hunt policy is reformed, still encouraged but not required, with alternative community service options for those who can't participate. The change is popular with pack members who felt marginalized by the old system. "You're good at this," Sylvia tells Leah after the policy passes. Coming from Sylvia, it's practically effusive praise. I'm good at seeing how systems fail people, Leah corrects. 6 months of being failed by systems taught me what to look for. Training with Sylvia has also evolved. It's no longer about proving Leah isn't weak. That battle was won months ago. Now, it's about actually making her capable of defending herself. Leah will never be as strong or fast as Alikan, but she's learning to use that to her advantage. Sylvia teaches her to fight dirty, go for eyes, throat, groin. Teach her to use weapons, knives, staffs, even improvised weapons like broken furniture or thrown objects. Teach her to read opponents and predict their moves. You'll never overpower an attacker, Sylvia says during one session. But you can outthink them. Make them underestimate you. Use their assumptions against them. It's the same strategy Leah used to survive court politics. And it works in physical combat too. By the end of her 4th month as Luna Queen, Leah can hold her own in sparring matches against younger Lycans. She'll never win against Sylvia or the elite warriors. But she's no longer helpless. And in a world where threats can come from any direction, that matters. One evening, as Leah prepares for bed, she finds Drew standing at the window of their shared chambers. They've been married officially for 3 months now, a quiet ceremony with just close friends and family. The mate bond was already absolute. The marriage was just formality. But it meant something to Leah. A choice freely made to bind herself to this man not because destiny demanded it, but because she wanted it. "What are you thinking about?" she asks, crossing to stand beside him. "How different everything is from 6 months ago," Drew says. "When I crashed that betrothal ceremony, I knew you were my mate. I knew I couldn't let you marry Carl. But I didn't know who you'd become." "Who have I become?" Drew turns to look at her, his golden eyes soft in the dim light. "Someone stronger than anyone expected, including yourself. You took a role you never wanted in a culture completely foreign to you, and you've thrived. You've changed this pack, Leah. Made it better. More just. And you've changed me." "Changed you how?" "Made me better too." Drew's hand cups her face gently. "I was a good king before you. Effective. Fair enough. But I was hard in ways that weren't necessary. Closed off in ways that hurt people. You've shown me that power doesn't have to be brutal to be effective. That strength can include mercy. That a king can be human," he smiles slightly at his word choice. "Or, at least humane, without being weak." Leah leans into his touch. "We've changed each other. I'm not the woman who stood in that ballroom waiting to marry a prince she didn't love. And you're not the king who ruled alone, trusting no one." "No," Drew agrees. "We're something better. Together." The mate bond hums between them, warm and certain. But what Leah feels transcends the magical connection. It's love, earned through shared struggle and mutual respect. It's partnership, forged through trials that would have broken lesser bonds. It's home, finally found after years of feeling like an outsider in her own life. They stand together at the window, watching the moon rise over their kingdom, and Leah thinks about the impossible journey that brought her here. From unwanted daughter to political pawn to Luna Queen. From powerless to powerful. From invisible to undeniable. She was meant for the prince. But the Alpha King claimed her in front of the court. And in being claimed, she found herself. 6 months after the coronation, Leah convenes her first Luna's Court, a forum she's created specifically to address issues that the traditional council overlooks. The idea came from Alara, the pack healer, who mentioned that many pack members had grievances that didn't rise to the level of official council business, but still affected their daily lives. "Where do they take those complaints?" Leah had asked. "Nowhere," Alara said. "They just suffer. Or handle it themselves, which sometimes makes things worse." So Leah created Luna's Court. Once a month, any pack member can bring concerns directly to her. No formal protocols, no intimidating council chambers. Just Leah, a few trusted advisors, and people who need help. The first session draws a surprisingly large crowd. Pack members line up outside the informal chamber Leah has designated for this purpose, a comfortable room with chairs instead of thrones, windows instead of stone walls. The first case is simple: two neighbors disputing property boundaries. Leah listens to both sides, examines the land records Nathan has pulled, and proposes a compromise that gives each party what they actually need rather than what they're demanding. Both neighbors leave satisfied. The second case is harder: a young mother whose mate died in a border skirmish, leaving her with 3 children and no support. The traditional council provided death benefits, but they were one-time payments insufficient for long-term survival. "What do you need?" Leah asks. "Work," the woman says. "I can work, but I need flexible hours because of the children. Most pack positions require full-time availability. I can't give." Leah makes notes. "What skills do you have?" "I'm a seamstress. I made most of my family's clothes." "Then I'm hiring you," Leah says. The palace needs someone to maintain the formal wardrobes, repair training leathers, and create new pieces for ceremonies. The work can be done on your schedule, from your home, if necessary. You'll be paid a steady salary, and your children can attend the pack school free of charge. The woman's eyes fill with tears. "Luna Queen, I thank you." "Don't thank me. You're filling a real need. This is business, not charity." But it is charity, in the sense that Leah is creating a position specifically to help this woman. And over the following months, she does it again and again, finding ways to support pack members who fall through the cracks of traditional systems. The Luna's court becomes wildly popular. Pack members start bringing issues they would never have brought to the Alpha King or the formal council. Leah resolves disputes, connects people with resources, and occasionally just listens to someone who needs to be heard. "You're building loyalty," Nathan observes after one particularly long session. "Not through power or fear, through actual care about people's lives." "Is that bad?" Leah asks. "It's dangerous for your enemies," Nathan says. "A Luna Queen who's loved by the common pack members has power that can't be easily undermined. The nobles can plot all they want, but if you have popular support, they can't touch you." It's a political observation, but Leah knows Nathan is right. She's not just Drew's mate anymore. She's a power in her own right, with her own base of support, which makes what happens next even more significant. A delegation arrives from the Southern Territories, a Leaken kingdom that's historically been neutral in conflicts between human and Leaken realms. They request an audience with both the Alpha King and the Luna Queen. The meeting is formal, held in the Great Hall with full ceremony. The Southern delegation is led by an elderly Alpha named Garrett Voss, who radiates the kind of power that comes from decades of successful rule. "Alpha King Drew, Luna Queen Leah," Garrett begins, "I come with a proposal. Our territories have been independent for generations, but times are changing. Human kingdoms are growing more aggressive. Conflicts are escalating. The Southern Territories believe it's time to consider closer alliances with other Leaken kingdoms." "You're proposing an alliance?"
Drew asks.
"More than that. A federation. Multiple Leaken territories united under a shared governance structure while maintaining local autonomy. Stronger together than separate. It's a bold proposal, potentially revolutionary, and potentially dangerous, concentrating too much power in too few hands." "Why approach us?" Leah asks. "There are other Leaken territories that are larger, older, more established." Garrett turns his attention to her, and there's respect in his eyes. "Because you're the only territory ruled by an Alpha King and a human Luna Queen. That signals something important, that the old ways of maintaining absolute separation between human and Leaken aren't sustainable. We need leaders who understand both worlds." "You do." The negotiations take weeks. Garrett isn't the only Southern leader. He's representing a coalition of alphas who've agreed to explore federation. Each has their own concerns, conditions, and requirements. Leah finds herself at the center of many discussions. She understands political alliance in ways that pure Lycans don't, Having lived through betrothal negotiations, trade agreements, and the complex dance of human court politics, she can explain how human kingdoms will react to a Leaken Federation, what concerns they'll raise, how to structure agreements that mitigate those concerns. You're better at this than I am, Drew admits one evening after a particularly grueling negotiation session. I had 6 months of intensive training in being a political pawn, Leah says. I learned how alliances work, what people actually want versus what they say they want, where the real pressure points are, how to find compromises that look like concessions but aren't. You learned from Queen Marianne. I learned by watching her manipulate everyone around her, including me. Now I'm using those same techniques for better purposes. The Federation Agreement is finalized on the first anniversary of Leah's coronation. 5 Leaken territories, the Northern Dominion, the Southern Territories, and 3 smaller allied regions, sign a treaty establishing the United Leaken Federation. Each territory maintains sovereignty over internal affairs, but they agree to coordinate on defense, trade, and diplomatic relations with human kingdoms. Drew is named High Alpha, first among equals, with authority to coordinate Federation business. But the structure is deliberately decentralized, preventing any single territory from dominating. The treaty signing is witnessed by representatives from multiple human kingdoms, including, to Leah's surprise, an envoy from Val Saran. Not Queen Marianne herself, but a senior diplomat carrying a personal letter. Leah reads it privately. Luna Queen Leah, I write to acknowledge the extraordinary work you and Alpha King Drew have accomplished. The Federation you've created has the potential to reshape the balance of power in our world. I also write to tell you that Prince Carl died 3 months ago. He never adjusted to exile. He grew increasingly unstable and ultimately took his own life. I tell you this not for sympathy, I know you feel none for him, but so you know the threat is truly ended. You're free of him in every sense. Your marriage to the Alpha King was meant to be a disaster. Instead, you've become one of the most influential political figures in the realm. Val Saran's loss was the Northern Dominion's extraordinary gain. Rule well, Luna Queen. The world is watching. Queen Marianne. Leah reads the letter twice, processing the news of Carl's death. She feels nothing.
No satisfaction, no grief, no closure.
Just the distant acknowledgement that a chapter of her life is permanently closed. She shows the letter to Drew that evening. How do you feel? He asks after reading it.
Free, Leah says.
Completely free. Carl was the last thread connecting me to who I used to be. Now, even that's gone. I'm not the girl who was sold to a prince. I'm not the pawn in someone else's political game. I'm just me. Luna Queen. Your mate. The person I chose to become. Drew pulls her close. You're extraordinary. You know that. I'm exactly what I needed to be to survive, Leah corrects. The world tried to make me weak. Instead, I got strong in ways no one expected. That night, Leah stands on the battlements, her favorite spot for thinking, and looks out at the kingdom she's helped build. Not the kingdom she was born into or sold into, but the one she earned through intelligence, courage, and sheer stubborn determination to prove everyone wrong who thought a human couldn't lead Lycans. The pack is prosperous. The Federation is strong. The threats are defeated. And Leah Boar, once meant for a prince who would have slowly killed everything genuine inside her, is exactly where she belongs. Luna Queen. Drew's equal partner. A leader in her own right. She was meant for the prince. But the Alpha King claimed her in front of the court. And in being claimed, in being seen, in being given the freedom to become who she truly was, Leah found something more valuable than any crown or title. She found herself. And she was magnificent. The end. So let's review what just happened. Leah walked back into Val Saran, the kingdom that tried to trap her in a terrible marriage, confronted her abusive ex-fiancé in his own throne room, got his mother to exile him for being an obsessive disaster, rescued her own family while Drew's strike team extracted them like it was an action movie, came back home, created an entire new court system to help ordinary pack members, negotiated a federation of Leakin territories, and then found out Prince Carl literally couldn't handle losing her and took himself out of the story permanently. This woman went from nervous bride-to-be learning to hold teacups properly to Luna Queen who reshapes entire political systems and makes other rulers nervous in 1 year. The character development is insane. Also, can we appreciate that Queen Marianne looked at her son threatening to start a war over a woman who clearly didn't want him and said, "Absolutely not. You're exiled. I'm choosing the kingdom. Goodbye." That's cold, but honestly, necessary. Carl was a disaster, and everyone knew it. And Drew just watched his mate negotiate international treaties, create social safety nets for vulnerable pack members, and generally prove that humans can absolutely lead Lycans if given the chance. And he's over there like, "That's my wife, and she's terrifying, and I love her." If you enjoyed this story about a woman who is supposed to be a political pawn becoming an actual queen, about intelligence winning over brute strength, about finding power by being authentically yourself instead of performing someone else's expectations, drop a comment telling me. Would you rather be Leah, human Luna Queen with no supernatural powers but terrifying political skills, or Elizabeth, Leah's sister who we barely mentioned because she stayed in her lane and avoided this entire drama? Because, honestly, being Leah looks exhausting. Court politics, assassination attempts, having to rescue your own family from your ex-fiancé, creating new government systems. That's a lot. But she also got Drew, an entire pack who respects her, and the satisfaction of proving everyone wrong who thought she was weak. Meanwhile, Elizabeth is probably at home reading books and living a peaceful life with 0 death threats. Sometimes boring is underrated. Subscribe for more stories where the overlooked ones turn out to be the most dangerous, where arranged marriages get dramatically disrupted, and where character growth means learning to weaponize everything people thought made you weak.